Welcome to the Athlete Lab podcast, where we discuss preparation, mindset, performance, and recovery systems that drive elite athlete development. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Jared DeMichiel. Jared is the associate head coach at Michigan State University Spartans. He has been in college hockey for a really long time. He has done a great job recruiting and developing athletes, both goaltenders, forwards, and defensemen. So, I really appreciate having you on today, Jared.
Awesome, Phil. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So you started at Michigan State with Adam Nightingale in 2022, and prior to that, you'd coached at a couple of different spots, UMass Amherst and St. Lawrence, and we got to know each other somewhere along the lines in there as our paths always crossed in different avenues. But talk me through a little bit of like how you got to where you are now, and sort of what are some of the things you've seen evolve in the college hockey landscape since.
For sure. Yeah. So no, I'm originally from out east. Don't hold that against me, but I grew up in Connecticut, was a diehard Hartford Whalers fan. That's how I got into hockey. Played for a prep school team out east called the Avon Old Farms that has some pretty good ones, but then played my college hockey at RIT, and then played a couple years professionally, mainly in AHL and ECHL. And I was packing my bags more than I was stopping pucks. And I was a 25-year-old rookie because I aged out a junior, then went to college. And when I got to my rookie year, everyone kept telling me how old I was. So I was like, I need to pick a profession where everybody tells me how young I am. And I just always had a passion for coaching, from working different goalie camps and youth camps and coaching summer teams. And I played a lot of different sports growing up. So I also taught at different clinics and things like that, and just had a passion of kind of passing along love of the game and things like that. And I actually first started at Nazareth College, which is a D3 school in Rochester, New York. So that's where I first got my beak wet, and was there for three seasons. It was a brand new program. So they literally had never had hockey before. So had to recruit 30 some odd players. That was an unreal experience, just learning not only to recruit, but to coach, to develop. I was a video coach. I was a strength coach. I got to run the D. I got to run the forwards, obviously work with the goalies, the penalty kill, the power play. I was freezing pucks. I was doing the score sheet. I was ordering pizzas, you name it. So, I mean, again, in Division III, you got to wear a lot of hats, and that was a great way to start. I also got my master's there too, so got to further my education. But for me, probably after like a month, I was like hooked on coaching, and then knew that's what I wanted to do moving forward. So after 3 years at Nazareth, was at St. Lawrence in the ECAC for 2 years. That's where I first connected with Greg Carvel. And we had some pretty strong teams there. We went to back-to-back ECAC championships there. Had a couple good Michigan boys, and Jacob Pritchard and Nolan Glukowski. Nolan played for CC high school hockey, then went on to the USHL. Jacob Pritchard, a little bit of a late bloomer, ended up hooking up with Little Caesars, but he won a championship for Indiana in the USHL. So after 2 seasons at St. Lawrence, Greg Carvel got hired at UMass, and joined him along for the ride at UMass, was there for 6 seasons. Our teams did fairly well. I think in our 6 years, I think we made the NCAA tournament 4 of those 6 years. One of those years, COVID hit. But I mean, I think we had like a 99.9% chance of making the tournament, and went to 2 Frozen Fours, won a national championship, and coached some pretty special players there, and that would never take credit for that in a million years. I think 80% of development falls on the player's shoulders and 20% on the coach. But we had some good ones in Cale McCarr and Mario Ferraro and Zach Jones. And then we had some really good players from the state of Michigan, and Mitchell Chafee and Matt Kessel, Ryan Lautenbach, Cal Kifuk, Bobby Kaiser. So had some pretty good ones there at UMass. And then Adam Nightingale reached out to me out of the blue to go to Michigan State. And I literally had never met him in person. I'd never talked to him on the phone. But when I was growing up and when I played in the USHL, like, Michigan State was a premier place to be, and knew of the potential. And I knew of Adam's background. And after our first conversation, kind of did the research and just knew how the school wanted to resource the program, knew of the upside, knew of the potential. And obviously, whatever, we're in our 4th season together, and we're not perfect, but like that we're trending in a positive direction. But we know how competitive it is in the Big Ten, and there's no nights off. But we're looking forward to finishing off the second half of the season here strong.
What a path you've had. I mean, to think of where you started. I love to hear that story about, being at Nazareth and doing all those things, because that is the reality often when you get break into coaching and packing your bags more than stopping pucks. I can relate to that more than I like to admit, but that's life, as you know. It's so you touched on these players that you've had, and you brazed over like Cal McCarr. I kind of forgot that timeline that you would have had him there. And it's what like an exceptional player. And you mentioned the Michigan players that you've had. So when you're out and you're recruiting and you've had different obviously players from all these different places, like what are some of the things that you're like maybe jump out to you that like Cale McCarr probably is a little bit different one, but like one of those other guys you mentioned, one was a late bloomer, played high school hockey and then moved on. What are you kind of looking for, and how old are the kids that you're really looking for when you talk about that next wave, the not McCarr wave?
Yeah, no, it's funny just how things kind of um, different situations, and it's more who you know than what you know. But I was actually just finished my first year at Nazareth, and I got into coaching at the USA Hockey Select Festivals. At that time, it was in Rochester, New York. I mean, I think it was basically 15 years ago, but I put my name in to try to work the Select Festival. Obviously, I think they usually pick people with a little bit more experience or higher caliber coaches. Me just went year one, but I put my name in just being like, hey, if you need somebody, I'm right here in Rochester. Give me a call. Somebody backed out late. I got to coach, and Jacob Pritchard was actually on that team that I coached. And Chris Mayotte had just been hired at St. Lawrence. And I'm working the camp. I have Jacob the whole week and think he's really talented, good player, good person. But Chris Mayotte was like, hey, what do you think of that Pritchard kid? And I'm like, hey, like, I think he's really good. I don't know if you're going to be able to get him to St. Lawrence, but I think he can play. From what I gather, like, he wasn't like a chosen one when he was in bantams or midget. Like, he's a little bit late bloomer, grown into his body. And Chris ended up committing him to St. Lawrence. And then ironically enough, when Chris left to go to Providence, I got hired at St. Lawrence, was able to coach Jacob for 1 year at St. Lawrence. And then he actually graduated in 3 years from St. Lawrence, and then did a graduate year for us at UMass, getting his grad degree. And he was on our national championship runner-up team. He was dealing cards on the power play with Cale McCarr. So, no, I mean, kind of touching on your questions there, Phil, like for us at Michigan State, it was very similar at St. Lawrence and at UMass. Like, we usually start to recruit players and watch them closely their U15 year. So like right now would be the 2010s, rising sophomores. That's where we start to watch them. That doesn't mean that's the end all be all. That's written in stone. That's no turning back. That's where we'll start to watch them and get to know them and research them. For us at Michigan State, like I think for the Fords, we like players that are very, very competitive, have a strong IQ, good sticks, and they can fill a role, whether that role is hammering one-timers on the power play, whether that's winning a big defensive faceoff, whether that's having speed and energy, whatever that may be. So whatever that role is, and sometimes players' roles change. Sometimes they move up, sometimes they move down. I do think it's very helpful that a player is versatile and they're not just a one-trick pony. There's only one Alexander Ovechkin, and he obviously adds more than just hammering one-timers. He can still hit. But now at his age, he can still hammer a puck, but he's 101. So from that standpoint up front, on the back end, it's big for us to have guys that can really skate. We like that can skate, that can defend, that can move pucks. Everybody wants to be the Cale McCarr, but Cale is obviously special and unique. I do think, too, with the D-core, everyone focuses so much on the play with the puck, but I do think a lot of your play without of the puck is just as valuable. And then from a goalie standpoint, from very basic, like we want goalies that can stop the puck. So in my time of college, coach guys that are small as 5'7" and as big as 6'6". You can be 6'6". If you can't stop a beach ball, you're not going to play between the pipes. You know what I mean? So, and if you're 5'7" and you don't give up any goals against, like we're going to keep chucking you between the pipes. So for goalies, similar to D, I don't think if you can't skate, you can't play. I think being a very strong skater, really focusing on your rebound control. So whether that's box control, using your stick, holding pucks in your body, putting them in good spots. And then I think you got to be very, very competitive. So it's maybe your goalie IQ or it's competitive on rebounds, fighting through screens, fighting to get in your post, fighting to beat guys to their ice, getting those spots early. Those are the kind of the big things that we focus on. But I really love recruiting players that are high end and the late bloomers. I think it's cool when a player gets better. Mitchell Chafee, who I mentioned earlier, he's a cool story. Watched him a ton when I was at St. Lawrence, and just for Mitchell, I think he wanted something different, maybe a bigger, larger school, and totally get that. But he was on a very strong Honey Bake team, some real high end players. Guys went on to play Division I professionally, the CHL, and Mitchell, whatever, wasn't like the chosen one, but he was a good player on that team. And then when we got to UMass, we needed a bigger body. The team that was there, the players that were committed, we had some smaller players. So the other assistant at the time, Ben Barr, who's now the head coach at Maine, the two of us talked and we were like, hey, like we need a bigger body. We need some strength, some guys with some meat. And ironically, we nicknamed him Meat. But Mitchell was a guy that was available. We saw him at the Select Festival that summer. We knew he was going to be playing in the USHL. We also knew his game from midget hockey. So we had already watched him for roughly 2+ years going into a third year, and he kind of fit that hole that we needed at UMass. And I do think we lucked out from the standpoint that Mitchell hit the ground running for us at UMass, but also too, kind of that midget player that he was came back to who we had him in college. In junior hockey, he did not light up the USHL by any stretch of the imagination, but also too, super, super hardworking kid, willing to go after his weaknesses, wanted to be coached, wanted to be held accountable, and was willing to work on those things. And he took advantage of an opportunity. We were trying to turn around the program at UMass, and he came in the door, was on our first line basically for 3 years, and ended up being the Hockey East leading goal point getter over some first-round draft picks, top 5 picks, perennial NHL players, and he beat them out. So like that story of Mitchell as well too. So again, it sounds cliche, but it's the God's honest truth. Like everybody has their own path, and some guys can sprint to college when they're 18, and some guys need a little bit more time. I think too, a lot of parents and families forget the fact that like college hockey is a man's game. Also too, most kids at 18 years old aren't ready socially to be on a college campus, to play college hockey, to take a full course load. It takes a special person as much of a special player to be able to handle that load.
You touch on so many things. And when I think about how your team plays, you can just see that the player, you mentioned it one times the puck, like on your team, that guy comes to mind, person who wins face-offs. So person who stops the puck is near and dear to our heart as a former Honey Bay player and someone that I was part of drafting with the Red Wings. But that's what you guys have. You have a complete team of players, which is really cool. And it's interesting to hear you talk on those different player attributes that you have. You mentioned something about meeting someone at a festival, and you said the player and then the person. What do you evaluate in the person that would be maybe a good lesson for coaches and parents and players to hear that is different than the work hard, but like the obvious stuff? What else are you evaluating in that select camp setting, which is pretty neat because you're going to meals together, you're seeing them in the locker room, in the dorms, like all the different kind of situations that provides. What are you looking for?
Yeah, no, I think that situation being around him, saw talent on the ice, but there's maybe say one time when he's on the bench and I'm like, hey, you're play without the puck, get your stick to the inside, get him to the outside, get him to your bad ice. And when we had that conversation, he had strong eye contact. He clearly wasn't brown nosing, was like, oh yes, coach, whatever you say, coach. It was like, okay. But then the next time he got on that ice and the situation happened, boom, it clicked. He immediately did it. So that's really 1 + 1 = 2. Hey, he heard coaching. He took it on the ice. He's very receptive. In those situations at the select festivals and being around it, he was a hockey sponge, wanted to talk hockey, was asking questions. That definitely, he was open-minded to hearing new things. I think obviously there's a ton of information out there in today's day and age with the internet and social media. And I think that's a good thing. But also too, being open-minded that we don't all have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. You might have a good amount of the answers, Phil, but I think just keeping that in mind where we can all grow, we can all get better. But again, in the recruiting process, we obviously, you need to have talent on the ice, but also too, are you willing to go on early? Are you willing to stay on late? Are you willing to work on the things that you don't want to work on? Everybody probably wants to shoot pucks, but do you want to work on your power skating? Do you want to work on your edge work? Do you want to work on wall play? Do you want to get worked into getting hit by people, to holding pucks, things like that? Those things that maybe might not be deemed as fun or cool, but those are actually the things that help you win hockey games and help you win a game 7. So those are the things that we try to really research. And sometimes it takes players longer than others, and that's totally fine. But are they receptive to that? Are they okay with failing too? How are they going to respond to things not being perfect? Those things are a huge, huge deal. And for us at Michigan State, for us to get the program where we wanted to be, I think we have some really talented players, but I think we have more special human beings that, have a chip on their shoulder, want to prove people wrong. There's no entitlement here whatsoever. It's all about the team. It's all about being committed. It's all about working hard. And also too, just because you work super, super hard doesn't guarantee that you're going to have success. I think it helps increase your chances, but there's no guarantee to that. And I think today's day and age, everybody wants a magic pill and a secret sauce. There's none of it. And I think a lot of parents too, for most of the time when you're unhappy about your son or daughter, where they're at, a lot of it actually comes from you, from how you raise them, but also to your genes. Myself, I wish I was 6'4", Greek-like chiseled body. It doesn't look that way anymore. I love my parents to death, but you get your genes from your parents and you can only do so much with it. And obviously you want to put everything into it. But a lot of the times, when you see some kids like the Kachucks, I think they got some pretty good genes and were kind of raised the right way by their parents. You know what I mean? Like, those guys are unique, but I do think the genes they got from their parents really help. And again, I would love to be a rocket scientist. I'm not that smart. I'm not that passionate about it. That's why I got into hockey. I love hockey. So those things do come into play. So sometimes for the parents, when you're mad at the coach, you might want to look yourself in the mirror and be mad at yourself that you don't have better genes for your child.
That's a good message. It's interesting you go down that parallel, because one of the things that I hear a lot is, and I think our parents heard it, our grandparents heard it, kids these days. And I look at a lot of the athletes these days, and they're more educated, they're better trained, they do more. And you said like 15 years ago, you were at a development camp. I feel like that's where we met actually, but that's neither here nor there. What has changed in your mind in like what players are doing now? The development, whether it's on ice, off ice, anything. What do you think's changed for better and then for worse? What have you seen?
Yeah. No, I'll say this. I don't think kids are different nowadays. I don't think coaching nowadays is any different. When I hear that, it's like nails on a chalkboard. I think if you have a relationship, player and coach, I think you can coach that player. I think you can be open, you can be honest, you can yell, you can scream. Obviously, you're hoping there's not a lot of that. But I think if you have a relationship, everything's open and it's transparent. I think that where things have changed, where if there was no relationship, maybe in whatever previous years, 10, 15, 20 years ago, head coach is the leader, they're the authoritarian, whatever they say, you do. And I don't think that's what coaching like that now can't happen. But I do think kids are kids, players are players. If you have that relationship, you can do whatever. And I think, again, our staff here at Michigan State, we're not perfect, but I think Adam, myself, Coach Towns, Coach Fast, Will Morlock in the gym, I think we've got a really good relationship with our players, and they know we have their best intentions in mind, and we can talk to them freely. And if they're working hard, competing, being a team player, we're probably not going to raise our voices at them. Like, we're going to coach them and want to help them get better. But if they do something selfish, if they're not working hard, if they're not competing, that's when they're going to hear it. And I think our players want to hear that. They want to be coached. I do think the modern player has more information. And I think maybe sometimes they might be inundated with too much information. Like, it's like overload. We have kids that come into us, and I actually feel like they have more things that try to complicate things, where we try to dumb it down, simplify it, make it as black and white as possible. where I felt like, again, that was a long time ago when I played, but I felt like when I played, people were like, we're trying to be more creative and open you up. Where I feel like now we're like, hey, let's try to simplify this, let your talent then come out from there. But we don't need you to be thinking about where your toe caps are going this way and you're kissing the ring and you're looking this way and that way and your shoulders got to be leaning this way. Just way too much. I mean, I'm a golfer. I like golfing. There's like one or two things that I try to focus on when I'm swinging. If I'm thinking of 100 things, there's no chance I'm going to hit that ball more than 2 yards. So less is more. I do think the modern athlete is better conditioned physically. They have more training knowledge. So I do think our players are coming in physically with a little bit better understanding of that. But again, too, like the body has limitations when you're 18 years old. You know what I mean? I think most kids and athletes, at least on the men's side, you really can start to put legitimate weight on when you're 19, 20 years old. It's hard to do it when you're 15, 16, 17. You can eat everything and train the right way and drink the right way, and just your genes take more time to kind of catch up. But I do think the modern player is willing to be coached if you have that relationship. I think the modern player, again, the right players, they want to be coached. They want to be held accountable. Cale Makar, super coachable player. Absolutely loved the game, adored the game, super, super passionate. Again, Trey Augustine here. I think he's a world-class goalie, world-class person. We've got a great relationship. Like we half the time we don't even have to talk. If he gives up a bad goal, I don't need to say to him, Trey, that was a bad goal. He'll be like, no, that was a bad goal. I need to make that save. So I think that ability to self-evaluate. I do think, again, we're all loving parents. I'm a loving parent. You're a loving parent. I do think parents now are more fearful of their children failing. And I think it's a great thing for them to fail, for them to learn from it. Again, you want them to be as prepared as possible, have the most success as possible. But I just know in my athletic experience, it was great, not in the heat of the moment, hated it, didn't love it, but getting cut from a team, not making the play, not like learning from that and helping you grow. It makes you thick-skinned. It helps prepare you. It makes you hungry. Those things are super, super valuable. And things of that nature, where when you do get to our level, you have some experience with failure, with not being on the power play, with not running the power play unit, with not being the number one defenseman or the starting goalie. Having to go through those situations, I do think is valuable for development as a player and as a human being.
For sure. There's that my mind goes to something that I look at as a bit of a hot topic or interesting topic, at least, and like year-round sports in general, but specifically hockey in the summer. So in these months, I know you and I have had lots of talks over Augustine and, what his summers look like because of USA Hockey and how well he excelled at a young age. What are your thoughts for young athletes? You mentioned you start tracking kids at 15. What should they be spending their summers on for the years that you're watching them progress?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think if you're a high-end U15 player, U16, U18 junior hockey player, I do think if you have the opportunity to do things like the USA Select Festivals, if you're trying to make a USHL team, things of that nature, I do think doing those things. But I do think in the summertime, I think it's super valuable to play different sports, to take your gear and chuck it in the basement, the garage, whatever that may be, and to play a different sport. Me personally, I played baseball in the summer times. I actually felt like that really helped me as a goalie with my hand and eye coordination. That also helped me mentally, going through different situations of playing a different sport. I think for our guys here, and after seeing it with Trey, when our season ended last year, he didn't touch the ice for 2 months. And I thought that was so valuable for his body, for his mind, so that when he got back onto the ice, his tail was wagging. But also, too, when he got back onto the ice, he had just trained for 2 months, getting his body in a spot to springboard for an unreal junior season here at Michigan State. So for the youth players, I mean, if you want to do 3-ish things plus or minus in the summertime. So whether that's development camps, training camps, hockey camps, I think those things are good. But like for me, like, and I get it. I'm not in youth hockey yet. I've got a 8-year-old daughter and a soon to be 5-year-old son, and my wife's due with one here she's at 38 weeks pregnant here right now. So we got another one on the way. But I do think playing different sports is super valuable. Nobody's going to get ahead of you by any stretch of the imagination. But obviously, when you get closer to 17, 18 years old, like that's maybe when you might want to specialize in a sport. But when I hear of like 10-year-olds just all in on one sport, like to me, that sounds like craziness. And I do understand in women's sports, the body develops a little bit faster. So maybe that specialization comes a little bit sooner than a male's body. But I see so much value in playing different sports, to playing whatever football or soccer in the fall, and obviously having hockey in the fall, but then focusing maybe on hockey. But like, I know for me, I was soccer in the fall. In the winter, I did baseball and hockey, or excuse me, basketball and hockey up until high school. And then in the spring, I did baseball. I did like indoor soccer and I golfed. And then come the summertime, did I do a few goalie schools? Yes. But I actually wish I did less of chasing different camps, trying to be seen, and just focused on my training. I think the training part is probably more valuable, especially in the months of May and June. That back half of the summer, you're getting closer to playing the season for hockey. I totally get it, July and August. But I know, like for me personally, my when I went to college, I finally took some time off the ice in May and June, and that really helped my game. You can Elite Prospect and looked it up. My numbers changed significantly when I took some time off, where I got stronger. It helped my hips, my groins, and also too, when I got back on that ice, I was super, super motivated. And I think that's why, again, I know some NHL guys never take their skates off year round, but a lot of them, they don't put their skates on until August. And the reason for that is they skate so much, they train so much on the ice to give their bodies a break is really, really helpful.
Got so much good stuff there for families and players and coaches to hear. Let's transition to your week to week at Michigan State. So you guys are one of the best teams in the country. It's been super fun to watch. You've got a week you're planning up. What does your week look like for your players as far as, how do you handle practice lengths, your workouts, your video cadence meetings, that sort of thing? What does it look like to be a Spartan hockey player right now?
Yeah, so we most of the time our games are on Fridays and Saturdays. So we'll practice Monday to Thursday. We'll do 2 to 3 days of skills before practice, pre-practice. So we'll split up positionally, forwards, D, goalies, work on some things that we want our specific positions to work on. We'll cut the ice. When we cut the ice, sometimes we might show video. Sometimes we may not show video. We'll just give them whatever 10 or so minutes to chill while the ice is getting cut. And then we'll hop on the ice and we hit the ground running. Our practices are super fast, physical, competitive. We want to make practices as challenging as possible so that when you get in the trenches of the game, you're prepared for that. And then when the guys get off the ice for practice, and we practice for roughly an hour plus or minus. Mondays might be a little bit shorter. Tuesday, Wednesdays might be a little bit longer. And then Thursday, we'll ramp it down the time-wise a little bit, but we're still really competitive and bashing bodies on a Thursday. After practice, we practice in the morning time here, which we're really fortunate. I think it's great, the sports science you see behind that. And our guys have done unreal academically too. But after we practice, the guys will head up into the gym with Will Morlock and his staff. Mondays and Tuesdays are heavier lift. Wednesdays more of like a flush recovery rollout. And then Thursdays, we'll do some speed, quick twitch, kind of get after it. Sometimes after games, depending on what Will kind of reads, we will do a lift, maybe on a Friday or a Saturday, depending on what we have going. Usually Sundays are off, but we really just try to focus on ourselves. Monday to Thursday, we're very much focused on how can we get better, how can we grow, how can we improve, how can we challenge ourselves. And then on game day, we'll do some video with our power play, with our PK, some 5-on-5, and then the same thing on Saturday. But I do think hockey's a little bit different than football, where hockey's constantly going, so you can't break down the film tape every situation. And I'm a proud American, but I think sometimes a lot of coaches try to turn hockey into football. and football's a great sport. But just hockey's constant flow, constant movement. There's more complex things, and you got to let your players play. You got to let them make mistakes. You got to let them to play through mistakes. But I do think for us, with how we practice, how we train, is really what has led to our success on the ice. And we did things very similarly at UMass and at St. Lawrence. I do think how we're resourced here at Michigan State is different than a lot of places. I think when people like to use the term student athlete experience, the experience that our guys are getting are freaking 1 in a trillion. They're super, super fortunate. And I think our guys really appreciate how our school takes care of them, from how they're taken on the ice and how they're taken with their meals and their nutrition and their recovery. There's so many resources here, and our guys love it. And I think too, we recruit our guys that want to take advantage of these things. We're not pushing them on the ice. We're actually pulling them off the ice to get them off the ice. So it's fun when you're at the rink every single day, and we'll do individual video throughout the week with our players. That gives us a chance to build that relationship, and we'll split up the forwards and the D and the goalies and do some one-on-one clips. We won't watch their whole entire shifts with them. If you're a D man that plays 22 minutes a night, you're not going to want to sit down with a coach for 22 minutes. You got enough going on. So we'll try to make it a little bit more brief, 10 or so clips per game, but just how their game can grow and improve. But how is it going to help our team win? How is it going to help you win the day? How is it going to help you have success? So we're huge fans of doing that.
Sounds like a holistic environment, which is unreal. And having been part of the Michigan State program, I know that the people around it are exponentially passionate about it. What's one thing, maybe recovery specific, that regardless of the environment you're in or the things at your disposal, what's one thing that athletes can take control of, that they can take away right now, regardless of where they're playing?
Yeah, no, I think with recovery, the two big things I'm a huge fan of after practice, game, workout, the two things, and I think everybody can do this. One, some type of cold tub or Normatec. Again, if you don't have the money for Normatec, totally get it, but everybody can find a cold tub. You do that 10 or so minutes after practice, game, whatever. A lot of us have tubs in our hotel rooms. But that recovery, to get that going in your body, to get that flushed out, huge fan of that. The second thing, just a supporter of that we can all do, is rolling out, stretching, whether it's dynamic, whether it's static. Again, I'm not a strength coach, but those are two things that I think are really helpful to put your body in a good spot for the next day. I see it with our guys here after every single practice, every single game. They're in the cold tub, they're contrasting, or they're using the Normatex. They'll do that pre-game as well too. Getting your body in a great spot is really helpful. Also too, after practice, guys will be up in the gym with Will and his staff trying some type of flush recovery. So those are two basic things that don't really cost money to take advantage of. Again, most of us already have tubs, or we can find one of them big, huge Tupper steel, whatever cans that you want to hop in and take a cold tub, something like that. Definitely take advantage of those things. And then obviously there's mental things that we can take care of too. I don't pretend to be a sports psych coach or mental performance, but those are also things that you can do off the ice that can kind of help you get your mind in a great spot. That's going to get your body in a great spot too.
So as it sits today, we have top 3 teams in the country in U.S. college hockey, with Michigan State, and Western there. Super exciting. You guys go into the rivalry, Michigan State games. Like, what is that like? What's the emotion like with these players? Whether they're teenagers or in their young 20s, everyone feels it. Like, talk a little bit about that and about the rivalry, and then like how you prepare for that type of game.
Yeah, no, not being from the state, born and raised, kind of was influxed into the situation, getting hired here. I came in hearing a state divided and learned really fast. It is a special, unique, different rivalry. It's definitely one of a kind. I think from the standpoint that makes it unique, that the schools are right down the road, but they play each other in every single sport. They've been in the same conference for how many years. I know on the hockey side of things, it's the most played rivalry in all of college hockey. And I think too, our teams, we play each other 4 times a year. So it's easy for there to be some emotion, that type of thing. And I know too, when the teams were in the CCHA, they played a lot as well too. So the it's special, it's unique. So feel very, very fortunate to be a part of it. It means so much, I think, to both of the fan bases. Like I think there's a different vibe on campus when we're going into playing the Michigan and things of that nature. But I think whatever you come to a place like a Michigan State, like a Michigan, so you can be a part of that rivalry because it is special, it is unique. I think our players, development wise, it's great for them to challenge their emotions, to challenge themselves physically. Obviously, we know there's really good players on both teams, some a lot of talent. I was a part of a strong rivalry at St. Lawrence and Clarkson, and sometimes I felt like that was like football and ice. The teams were just trying to kill each other, where both teams definitely are trying to kill each other, but guys are trying to toe drag somebody and go bar down, or they're trying to make a sick pass. Both the teams have a lot of talent. They're really competitive, and I do think we've gone back and forth here the last few years, and I think for us, we're looking for a specific type of kid that wants to be challenged, that has that blue collar mentality. I do think Michigan State resonates with a lot of people throughout the state of Michigan. I do think there's that blue collar mentality, that grittiness. I think that resonates with a lot of Michigan State people and stuff like that. But I definitely, being here, feel very fortunate to be a part of it. Look forward to those games. No, like just a minor thing can kind of set you off a little bit, but there's definitely some emotions, and it's good. I think it's gonna for you to learn how to control those emotions. And if one little thing, hopefully that doesn't set you off, and it really helps you to stay laser focused on what really matters.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear, and you can just tell by the way that you articulate what it's like, and you're right, what it means to the state. It really is. It's a unique thing, and it's great when both teams are national powerhouses as well. Like that. That's good for hockey in the state of Michigan, and it's good for so much. So I can't wait to watch it. It's always cool when they hosted downtown Detroit and everybody, the state divided, gets to all walk the same concourse and in a relatively safe environment. But I do know that there's that rivalry is real and it's deep, and it's really fun to watch. So I'm excited to watch those games for sure.
Yeah, no, I think again, coming out to Michigan State 4 seasons ago, I don't think the duel in the D gets the press that it really deserves. I mean, you're at Little Caesars Arena. There's 19,000 plus people. The arena, a lot of it's in green, some of it's in blue. The fight songs for each team are playing. A lot of the alums from the two schools get downtown early. They've had happy hour, been tailgating or getting a bite to eat, and then they're heading to LCA. Like I remember turning to Nighty like early in the first period and just being like, "This is sick." And there hasn't been many times on the bench that I've talked to him like that and tried to stay focused on it. But definitely look forward to this game every single year. And I think both schools are very lucky and unique. I know the Beanpot gets some press out east, but I know their games aren't sold out and the roof's not popping off like it is at the Duel in the D. And no, our schools are very fortunate to be a part of it, and we definitely look forward to it.
Yeah, it's the LCA has yet to see NHL playoffs, which hopefully this is the year that they see that. But I remember working for the Red Wings and then watching the Duel in the D, and I was like, this energy is, the Red Wings games get there as well. But wow, it's a different type of energy. And it's really nice of you to say the alumni, because there's a lot of us out there that didn't go to one of those other schools but enjoy. And, they're going to claim green or blue depending on how you're indoctrinated as a child. So that's part of the genetics you were talking about earlier. So yeah, it's a cool rivalry. Anyone who hasn't gone yet really should find a way to get a ticket, because it is good every year, this year especially with the powerhouse you guys both have. So it'll be fun to watch.
For sure.
Jared, can't thank you enough for taking the time to be part of this podcast. So much for players and parents and coaches that they can take away from it. And really, really can't wait to watch the end of the season, and, wish you all the best. So thanks for being part of the Athlete Lab podcast.
Thanks, Phil.